The smell of burning is still present in my memory. Everything seemed normal that night, until a revelation pierced my skin like broken glass. This wasn't just a wife. It was the setting for a lie that had lasted longer than I could admit. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that hides secrets bigger than the walls. My heart was pounding, but my mind was cold, almost numb. It's strange how danger can seep into the details. A forgotten bottle, a loosely closed drawer, a perfume that wasn't mine. Each tiny piece revealed a dirty puzzle I never asked to be put together. And suddenly, everything that seemed solid crumbled. Because when betrayal enters through the door, even the air changes texture. He smiled in public, greeting his neighbors as if he were the perfect husband. But at night the mask fell away. I felt the weight of indifference in his icy touch, his averted glances, his kisses that never came. I wondered, how long can a woman bear the burden of being invisible in her own home? Betrayal doesn't scream, it whispers. It's noticeable in the smell of freshly ironed clothes, impregnated with strange perfumes, in the incessant vibrations of the phone, in the brief glance at a name on the screen. And every time I noticed it, something inside me hardened, until it stopped being pain. It was stone. I became a spectator of my own life, like someone watching a fire from afar, feeling the heat but lacking the strength to run. And in this fire, my role was that of an announced victim. But I refused, because even the driest wood can be reduced to embers if you blow on it. Everything was at stake. My dignity, my history, my very presence in this home. The risk wasn't losing a husband, but losing myself. And I wouldn't allow it. Life has taught me that when someone tries to take away your worth, the only way is to rekindle the flame, even with a burst of revenge. There was something theatrical about what I discovered. As if life had written a cruel play, where I should have applauded while he played the passionate lover. But I refused to be an extra. I preferred to write my own scene. And so was born the secret that still haunts me. A small, almost banal decision that turned into an explosion. Because it only takes one detail to turn the tables. And when the truth emerged from the shadows, it didn't come alone. It came accompanied by screams, sirens, and bewildered looks. Everything changed in a matter of minutes. And I still wonder, what can a wounded woman do when silence is no longer enough? The answer isn't in the obvious. It's in what no one would dare imagine. I remember the first time I realized it wasn't just jealousy or mistrust, but something real, concrete, like a crack that ran through the entire wall of the house. I pretended not to see, not to hear, because there was always a family dinner, a photo of me smiling, an obligation that forced me to maintain that pretense. But the truth is that when silence prevails between two people who should share everything, that silence is more eloquent than any words. It weighed on the table, between the plates, between the glasses. It was as if every repeated gesture, every tap of the fork on the plate, was a hammer blow reminding me that I was no longer part of their lives. The cruelest detail wasn't his absence, but his false presence. He was there, sitting across from me, yet he still seemed distant, as if he kept another world in his pocket. His phone was his hiding place, and the body beside me in my bed was just an ornament that no longer belonged to me. I spent nights watching the rhythm of his breathing, trying to guess who he was dreaming about. I heard the key jingle in the lock at odd hours, the sweet scent wafting from the collar of his shirt. A scent that wasn't mine, that never was. And each discovery was like a splinter, a small piece, almost invisible, but one that wounded me deeply. The note I found in the drawer still burns when I close my eyes. The hastily folded paper, the feminine handwriting, the words heavy with desire. I felt my skin burn when I imagined the scene, as if I'd been invited to a disgusting spectacle from which I was excluded. The shock didn't come alone. It brought me a mixture of rage and coldness, the same coldness he offered me every night. It's strange how, at certain moments, the pain transforms into lucidity. I no longer saw just a cheating husband. I saw a small man, unable to maintain his own mask. I saw a future where I would remain curled up, begging for attention, trying not to collapse. And that's when the question arose. How many women accept living like this, believing it's normal to be abandoned? The answer hurt more than the betrayal. 'Cause I know there are many. And I know that's precisely why so many people choose to stay here, following every revelation, every detail, as if searching in someone else's story for the courage to change their own. That day I didn't cry. I didn't ask for explanations. I sat silently, the paper between my fingers, feeling its rough texture. There was no more room for tears. I knew that, from that moment on, I would need a strategy. Not just to survive, but to show that I was still intact, that my silence wasn't submission, but preparation. That night, I walked through the house as if I were in enemy territory. Every object seemed to have a different weight. The drawers, the closets, the glass jar hidden under my socks. Everything spoke to me. Everything told me the evidence was there, as clear as the light coming through the window. And I knew that, once revealed, nothing would ever be the same. That's when the story stops being just about suffering. Because when dignity is violated, something is born within us. A small flame, but one that grows silently. And I could already feel it. I didn't know exactly how I would use it, but I knew it would lead me to an unimaginable result. What I did next still resonates with me. And it was precisely at that moment that everything began to change. So unexpectedly that even today I'm breathless when I recall the moment I decided to act. The silence in the house that night was dense, almost crushing. Every corner seemed to breathe with me, as if the walls held secrets I hadn't yet dared to express. I moved slowly, brushing the furniture with my fingertips, feeling the coolness of the wood, the fine dust accumulated in the corners. Everything seemed intact, but inside me nothing was in its place. There was a gaping crack, from which escaped a power I'd never felt before. As I slept, I looked at the body beside me and felt as if I were looking at a stranger. His relaxed, almost innocent face contrasted with the scent of cheap perfume that still clung to his skin. It was as if two versions of him coexisted. The one the world saw, smiling and respectable, and the one I knew now, hidden in darkness, shrouded in lies. This contrast ate away at me, but it also woke me up. With each breath, I felt the distance between us widen. The room seemed divided by an invisible line, an unbridgeable chasm. The sound of the wall clock ticked away the seconds like dull thuds, reminding me that time never stops to heal wounds. And yet, an unexpected calm reigned within me, a clarity that only appears when pain transforms into determination. I began to notice details I'd previously ignored. Her rush to hide her phone, her smile, as if receiving messages that warmed her heart. The sparkle in her eyes, which had never moved me. These signs were no longer simple clues. They were confirmations. And the more I confirmed them, the heavier my breathing became, as if the air in the house had become too thick to contain. But it wasn't just about him. It was about me. About what I had allowed, about the times I kept silent to avoid arguments, about my acceptance of living as a shadow. I looked in the mirror and saw not just a betrayed woman, but a woman who had forgotten her own worth. This revelation hurt more than any hidden note, more than any strange smell on her clothes. Because it was as if I had erased my own reflection so that it would shine somewhere else. Yet, hidden in the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. The idea that I could reclaim my voice, my story, my dignity. Life offered me a stark choice. Continue begging for attention or take the reins of history. This realization was like a flickering flame in the darkness. Small, fragile, but capable of igniting anything. I began to plan silently, like watering a buried seed. Every move he made fit into my strategy. Every hesitant apology was a brick falling from the facade he'd built. And inside me, the certainty grew that the denunciation would be inevitable. Not because I'd screamed, but because I knew exactly where and when the world would discover who I really was. Tension rose in the air, like electricity before a storm. I knew it wasn't time yet, but it was coming. One moment of distraction, one bad decision, and everything would come crashing down. I could feel it, like someone anticipating thunder even before it cracks the sky. What I harbored inside me was more than outrage. It was the silent promise that I would never forget what was about to happen. And deep down, I also knew that what came next would be more terrible than any pain I had ever felt. There were nights when I simply sat in the dark living room, lights off, listening to the sounds of the house as if they were voices. The creaking of the floorboards, the wind blowing through the barely closed window, even the distant slamming of a neighbor's door seemed to convey hidden messages. And in those moments of silence, when the outside world seemed to fall asleep, I stood face to face, without masks, without distractions. The pain ceased to be a simple wound and became a living reminder of what I still had to face. I thought everything could be different. All it took was a gesture from him, a sincere apology, a look that recognized me again. But the absence of these gestures was so strong I could almost hear it. It was like walking down a road where every step echoes like a void, with no answer. And yet, there was a strange mix of sadness and determination inside me, as if every disappointment was also a stone he placed along the path to stabilize me. I remember looking at my hands on the kitchen table. The lines, the marks, the small scars told my story more truthfully than any words he could have spoken. And it was when I looked at them that I understood. I wasn't broken, I was marked. And each mark could also be a form of resistance. It is at this moment that many feel the need to support this journey, leaving a silent sign that the message has touched them. Because this is not just my story, but a reflection of so many other lives traversed by similar silences. Sometimes a fond memory resurfaces, almost like a trap. Her laughter on a distant trip, the nights we seemed close, the plans we had made together. These images appeared like flashes in the darkness, clouding my feelings. It was cruel because it reminded me that I had lost not only her loyalty, but also the innocence of believing her eternal. The contrast between that sweet memory and the bitter reality was a slow poison, but it also helped me understand the magnitude of the chasm that now separated us. And yet, despite this duality, I realized something deeper was brewing inside me. It wasn't just revenge. It was the need to regain the dignity that had been taken from me little by little, almost without my realizing it. It was as if each revealed lie turned on a light in a dark room in the house, and suddenly, I began to see everything I had preferred to ignore until then. Life has a strange way of teaching us. Sometimes it reveals the truth as a shock, sometimes as a silent revelation, but always as an opportunity to choose. I was no longer the same woman who pretended to believe in excuses. I was a person in transition, ready to take a step that would change not only my story, but also how those around me would remember it. This stage was still hidden within me, kept secret, ready to be revealed at the right moment. And it is precisely in this waiting that my breath stops, my heart races. Because when the moment arrives, nothing will be held back. And what was hidden resurfaces with undeniable force. Every day that passed, I felt like I was living between two worlds. There was the outside world, where everything seemed normal. The casual conversations with neighbors, the quick greetings at the supermarket, the self-important smile I plastered on as if nothing were happening. And there was the inner world, the one that silently consumed me, where every memory, every detail I clung to, became fuel for something bigger than myself. It was like walking on a frozen lake, listening to the cracks widen beneath my feet, never knowing when the ice would give way. Mornings were always the worst. The sun streamed through the kitchen window and illuminated the objects we shared. The mugs, the key ring, the photos on the wall. Everything seemed so normal, but at the center of this routine loomed a constant shadow, like a stain that wouldn't disappear from the fabric no matter how much I scrubbed it. The contrast was cruel. Shadow and light occupied the same space, as if the universe were trying to remind me that nothing was stable, nothing was guaranteed. Sometimes hope would emerge unexpectedly. A prolonged glance in the mirror, a moment when I could glimpse the woman still holding on beneath the wrinkles and fatigue. I saw a spark as if my body were saying, "It's not over, you're not invisible." But soon, fear took hold, the fear of making the mistake again, of not being strong enough to endure what was to come. This dance between hope and fear was exhausting, but it also kept me awake. There were nights when I paced the halls of the house as if rehearsing a scene. I touched the bedroom doorknob, imagining the expressions, the looks, the words that would be said when everything was revealed. It was a silent theater, played out only for me, but it gave me the strength to face the present moment. Every step, every gesture, calculated in my mind, was part of a larger plan that still remained hidden, even from myself. I realized the extent to which silence had become my greatest weapon. He had no idea that in calm a hurricane was contained. I responded with short sentences, vague glances, and this mask of fragility allowed him to continue believing he was in control. Little did he know that it was precisely in silence that he gained ground, that he laid the groundwork for revelation. This invisible game was beginning to weigh on me. I was short of breath. My heart sometimes raced with a banal banality. It was as if each of my gestures concealed an imminent explosion. The contrast between what I showed and what I felt was so stark that I sometimes wondered how long I could maintain this role. But something inside me, an unshakable certainty. The moment was approaching, and once it arrived, there would be no turning back. And it was precisely at that moment that the tension became unbearable. The weight of carrying the truth alone, the burden of waiting for the right moment, the feeling that every second could be the last before the outcome. It was like standing before a closed door, knowing that behind it a scene would unfold that would change everything, without even having turned the key. The sound of that silence still resonates within me, announcing that what comes next will be greater than any suffering I've ever endured. Time seemed to have taken on a different rhythm in this house. Each minute stretched like a taut rope, breathless, about to snap. I walked through the rooms and felt as if every object was watching me, a witness to my silence and a promise of what was to come. The light curtains fluttered in the morning breeze, and the soft brush of the fabric against the wall reminded me of the fragility of everything I had built. Nothing was solid, nothing untouchable. Sometimes, sunlight streamed through the living room window and created golden stains on the floor, as if offering me an image of a possible future, brighter, freer. But the sound of the key turning in the lock was enough to bring back the heavy, suffocating shadow. It was this contrast that kept me awake, as if I were living in two parallel universes, one where I could still dream, the other where the nightmare was permanent. I found myself imagining what would happen if everything were revealed suddenly, without preparation. I saw the faces of my neighbors around me, heard the astonished murmurs, felt the shame that would sweep over them like an uncontrollable storm. These images haunted me, not just as revenge, but as a need for balance. As if the justice I had been silently denied had to be manifested in public, in front of everyone, to have any real weight. And between these visions, moments of doubt arose. There were nights when fear crept into me, whispering that perhaps I was going too far, that I might lose myself to her when the truth came out. This fear was cold, persistent, but it couldn't paralyze me, because immediately, the memory of every blank stare, every dismissive gesture resurfaced, and the fear gave way to an even firmer resolve. It was like carrying two voices inside me in constant conflict. One told me to wait, to back down, to not take risks. The other propelled me forward, with the strength of all the wounds I had suffered. And in this struggle, I discovered something essential. There is no transformation without loss. There is no light without crossing the darkness. My entire life seemed condensed into those silent moments. The cold touch of the walls, the reflection of my tired face in the mirror, the labored breathing every time he came closer. He was present and absent at the same time, like someone living in a body and watching from outside. This feeling accompanied me even in my sleep, when I would wake up in the middle of the night, my heart pounding, as if I had run for miles without moving. And yet something bigger was growing inside me. Something that wasn't just anger or pain, but the awareness that every step toward revelation was also a step toward myself. The weight of the secret consumed me, but it also shaped me. Like a stone slowly polished by friction, I felt my silence transforming me into something stronger, more vivid, smarter. What I knew but didn't dare admit yet was that the decisive moment was approaching. I felt it in the air, in the rhythm of the house, even in the small details of everyday life. As if the entire universe were conspiring for this moment to arrive. And when it arrived, it would be impossible to contain. It would be like holding your breath underwater. Sooner or later, the breath runs out, and everything hidden emerges to the surface. It was as if every move he made, without me realizing it, added a new obstacle to my plan. The way he left his coat on the chair, the way he hid messages on his phone while smiling at me with the same expression. All of this, once a source of pain, became a source of observation. I watched him live in his own trap, unaware that every detail was seared into my memory like invisible but powerful evidence. And the more I believed in his impunity, the more certain I became that the outcome was inevitable. Tension spread in waves through the house. I felt it in the hallways, in the silence at meals, in the weight of every emotionless word. It was a familiar scene to anyone watching from the outside, but for me it was like standing center stage, where the audience doesn't yet know the final scene is approaching. This feeling of closeness energized me, as if I could hear my heartbeat in time with the revelation. Sometimes, sitting alone at the kitchen table, I imagined people's reactions upon finding out. I saw their expressions change, the shock etched on their faces, the shame he'd never been able to hide. I could almost hear the murmurs, the whispers, the silent judgment that falls upon someone when their mask falls. These images gave me strength, not only because they revealed the betrayal, but also because they showed the difference between the image he projected and the truth I harbored. And in this weight, the contrast between effort and reward began to emerge. My effort lay in silence, in controlling every emotion, in not letting anything escape that might reveal my strategy. The reward would come at the precise moment when the truth was revealed to everyone. It was like storing seeds underground, knowing that one day they would sprout from the earth with irresistible force. There was also the fear of being discovered prematurely. One persistent glance, one careless tone of voice, and everything could come crashing down. This constant risk kept my body on alert, as if every movement were part of a delicate game where the slightest mistake could mean losing everything. But at the same time, this same fragility made each step more calculated, more precise, like someone learning to walk along the edge of a cliff without ever looking down. It's funny how, in moments like these, even the most intense feelings transform into strategies. Anger became a goal, sadness fuel, and even fear a warning. Every emotion, which had previously seemed like an unbearable weight, now organized itself within me like pieces on a chessboard I was finally beginning to master. Perhaps that's why, when faced with these stories, so many people feel compelled to share their own experiences, as if every detail were a mirror reflecting hidden secrets. That's why I ask, what would you have done in my place? This silent reflection is often the key that connects the listener with the person who lived it. And it was precisely in this invisible bond that the tension intensified. Because what was about to happen wouldn't just be an agreement between two people, but a revelation that would transcend the walls of the house, permeating glances, words, and memories. I knew I was nearing the moment when nothing could be hidden anymore. And the breathlessness that accompanied me every night was proof that the next step would not only change my life, but would also mark his forever. At times, I felt the weight of it all gathering in the air, as if the house itself were breathing with me, harboring the silently growing secret. The walls seemed narrower, the hallways tighter, as if the physical space itself were also yielding under the tension I carried within. It was suffocating and, at the same time, revealing. For it was in this suffocation that I began to clearly discern every detail, every crack in the perfect image I was still struggling to maintain in the eyes of others. I watched their arrivals and departures like someone observing a repeated but increasingly predictable ritual. The coat left in the same place, the strange smell permeating their clothes, the distant gaze that avoided mine. Small gestures that to anyone else would have been banal, but to me, they were bright signs announcing that the end of the farce was near. This clarity, however, came at a price, because it also brought with it uncertainty. How long could I endure this silence before it consumed me completely? Some nights I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining the moment his mask would fall before everyone's eyes. I would visualize the packed room, the stunned stares, the whispers cutting through the air like sharp blades. I could almost hear the shame spreading, transforming him into a small man, reduced to the size of his own lie. But right after that image, another, more subtle and cruel, would invade me. The doubt of whether I would be able to keep up this act until the end, without giving in to exhaustion. This contrast between hope and challenge constantly propelled me forward. There were days when victory felt within reach, almost palpable, and others when the weight of the secret crushed me, as if I were carrying invisible stones on my back. It was in these comings and goings that I discovered a new strength, a resilience I hadn't known I had. And even when fear tried to silence me, something inside me propelled me forward, reminding me that I was not only seeking revenge, but also to reclaim what had been stolen from me, my own worth. The progress of my plan wasn't linear. There were obvious breakthroughs, moments when I felt I was close to the goal, but also subtle obstacles, like the wariness that sometimes flashed in his eyes, as if he sensed for a moment that something was wrong. In those moments, I had to contain even the strongest beat of my heart, keep my breathing steady, and maintain the mask I'd put on to deceive him. It was a delicate dance, where every miscalculated step could ruin everything. And yet, amidst this tension, glimmers of clarity emerged. I looked in the mirror, contemplating the woman I'd become, steadier, more aware, less willing to give in. The uncertainty didn't disappear, but it no longer held the same power to paralyze me. It was like walking along a path of uneven stones, feeling the pain with every step, but knowing the horizon was just ahead. With each passing day, the line between silence and revelation blurred. I knew the decisive moment was near, that soon I would no longer be able to contain what was boiling inside me. And this anticipation was so intense that, at times, it left me breathless, as if I were living breathlessly, waiting for the moment when everything would suddenly explode. Each dawn seemed like a silent rehearsal for something much bigger. The sun streamed through the window and cast its rays onto the living room floor, but inside, the shadow lingered. This duality always accompanied me, the clarity of what was to come and the darkness of all that remained hidden. It was like walking down a long hallway, lit only by thin cracks, never seeing the end, but sensing it approaching. I found myself noticing small details with an almost painful intensity. The glass left on the sink, the lingering scent of perfume that wasn't mine, the messages I'd responded to hastily. Every detail reminded me that the truth no longer belonged in the drawers where I tried to hide it. And the more I paid attention, the more the conviction grew within me that the moment of revelation was approaching, like an uncontrollable tide. But with this certainty came doubt. I wondered if I'd have the strength to hold everyone's gaze during the final scene. My heart pounded just imagining the faces around me, the hubbub piercing the silence, the shame etched on them like an indelible mark. At the same time, the image soothed me, as if every murmur of disbelief was also a piece of justice returning to me. There were nights when I couldn't sleep. I paced around the dark house, caressing the cold walls, listening to the echo of my footsteps. In those moments, fear took hold of me, trying to convince myself that perhaps it was better to give up, leave things as they were, move on in silence. But just remembering his cold stare, how he ignored me, even in his bed, was enough to turn that fear into fuel. It was the memory of my invisibility that rekindled the flame of resistance. The contrast was constant. Confidence and doubt battled within me. Progress and challenges intertwined daily. I moved forward even when it seemed like I was going backward. I built even when it felt like everything was about to collapse. The balance was fragile, but it was won. And I clung to it, with the firmness of one who knows there's no turning back. Sometimes I imagined what my life would be like afterward. The room lit up differently. The house breathed without the weight of lies. My skin felt lighter than it had in a long time. These visions gave me hope, but they also reminded me that between this moment and that future, there lay a difficult journey, full of risks and uncertainties. Like crossing a narrow bridge over a turbulent river. I could see the other side, but I still had to face the vertigo to get there. And it was precisely this vertigo that kept me awake, attentive to every step, every detail. I knew I was about to open a door from which I could never return. And while the key still remained invisible in my hands, The silence around me seemed to whisper that the moment was near, so near that I could already feel it approaching like the distant rumble of thunder heralding a storm. And then, the moment that seemed distant finally arrived. It arrived without warning, without preparation. It was like a door suddenly opening in the silence, letting in an unexpected light. What was hidden could no longer remain in the shadows, and the scene unfolding before me was so intense that even today I hear the sounds, see the faces, feel the heavy air, pierced by whispers. Her shame didn't fit within the walls. It spread like wildfire, consuming the mask she'd worn for so long. The stares of others were relentless, each whisper a phrase, each expression of disbelief a shattered mirror in which she would never recognize herself again. And through it all I stood there, silent, steadfast. I didn't need to scream, I didn't need to accuse. The weight of the truth spoke for me. It was in this contrast, between her ruin and my calm, that I felt the transformation. I was no longer the woman who silently wandered around the house, carrying an invisible pain. I was the woman who had come through the fire and emerged healthy. This difference was visible even in my gestures, in the way I held my head high, in my gaze, which no longer wavered. The image that stayed with me was almost cinematic. The packed room, the attentive gazes, the sound of sirens that seemed to announce not only chaos, but also my liberation. It was like watching a storm clear the sky, leaving the scent of damp earth in the air, heralding a new beginning. Difficult, no doubt. Painful, no doubt. But profoundly necessary. And at the heart of this public revelation, I found something I'd been searching for without even knowing it. Belonging. Not just to those watching from the outside, but also to myself. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a solid place in the world, that my scars weren't marks of defeat, but signs of resilience. If you've made it this far, you know how much silence, waiting, risk, and strength have shaped this path. That's why, upon hearing this story, many feel the need to leave a silent gesture of support, a comment that reflects their own reflection, or even the decision to stay with us after each revelation. Like, comment, and subscribe not just as an outside observer, but as someone who recognizes themselves in this mirror. Because the true privilege wasn't just surviving the fall of the masks, but learning that life is reborn when you have the courage to face pain and transform it into strength. Today, I am no longer the shadow that walked alone around the house. I am the woman who raised her voice at the right time, and who now walks determinedly toward what truly matters. And if there is only one image to treasure from this story, let it be that of a burning, clear, and inextinguishable flame, illuminating not only my path, but also that of all those who believe that dignity is inalienable.